Welcome to Name and Occupation in Depth. We are so excited to have Albert Frantz on the show today. He is an American concert pianist based in Vienna, Austria. He began piano studies at the unusual age of 17 and became the Fulbright Scholar, Bösendorfer's artist, and Ironman triathlete. Albert has done several TEDx's. His unique story has been the subject of a documentary, and he was the cover story for Toastmaster magazine in 42 countries. As a children's rights activist, he speaks internationally at venues including the World Congress on Family Law and Children's Rights, the Austrian Parliament, and the United Nations in Geneva. In November 2024, Albert will be performing at the inaugural concert for children's rights at the Vienna City Hall.
Albert, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Well, thanks so much for the kind invitation. I really appreciate it.
You grew up where in America, in the U.S.?
Yeah, I was born outside of Philadelphia, not into a musical family, um, and I had like a couple of like false starts at the instrument, and the first was where like there's a sign of maybe like musical aptitude, let's say, not sign of like this is the next Mozart by any means, right? That's just to be clear. But uh, when like once when I was in kindergarten, my mother was talking to the teacher, and the kindergarten teacher asked, "Where did Albert learn how to play the piano?" And my mother just like gave her like this deer in headlights look, and it's like, "What do you mean? You must be talking about some other kid." No, I mean your son. Like, what do you mean? And well, every day the principal comes into the classroom and then play something. And I remember that there's this old beaten up yellow upright piano, in the corner of the kindergarten. I do have like a clear memory of that. Uh, and then the principal plays something on the piano, and then Albert plays it back. And then my mother said, "Well, that's impossible. We've never even had a piano." So soon after that, then like there was like the first attempt to get me, and I grew up with two adopted brothers at the time, and then another adopted sister who came a number of years later. But there was an attempt to get the boys piano lessons, and like long story short, I mean, I had like there were a couple of attempts, but I I didn't I hadn't heard classical music because I didn't grow up in that culture, and I think that's like I wish I could like kind of like spread the word about of like how cool, how amazing classical music is. And what's often done in our culture is like if we don't know something, then we assume it's no good or it's not relevant, right? But in reality, like, oh my god, this is a whole world. It's just like a whole universe to explore. I didn't grow up with that because I didn't grow up in that culture, and so basically, I didn't know what 10 fingers and 88 keys were capable of. So I didn't know it was possible. And then, you know, after a couple of false starts, I had a teacher who fired me. Like she literally told my mother, take your money every week, throw it in the garbage. Albert will never be able to play the piano. But the truth is, I didn't care. Like, okay, great. I have better things to do. I could go like read, I could go like play chess or something. And it, so I didn't care at the time. And then many years later in high school, now I remember this is very embarrassing, but when I was 16, I asked one of my high school teachers what kind of music he listened to, and he said classical, and I literally laughed in his face because I had no idea that there existed anybody in the world who listened to classical music, whatever classical music was. I mean, I suppose like if someone had like put a gun to my head and I said like who was Mozart, I was, he wrote music, right? But I, of course, I wouldn't be able to would know anything that he wrote. And then the very next year, I was on like the track and cross country teams in high school, and there was a teammate who was just obsessed with jazz guitar, and we would go on these long training runs together. And he would just talk the entire time about all the great jazz musicians, right? And then that made me curious, and I thought, okay, well, maybe I could learn how to play a couple pop songs. I mean, I tried piano as a kid, maybe maybe I could learn like at least a little something. And I signed up for lessons with the local teacher. I used to be her paper boy, Nancy Lou Pellet, and she was an opera singer. She was a trained opera singer, not a pianist. So she actually literally never played a note on the piano for me. And but she recognized my talent right away. She gave me a song from from Gershwin's songbook, and somehow I learned it like immediately. Like, oh my god, this is amazing! And it was my first experience of actually being able to get my hands around a keyboard. Like you play, like, oh my god, there's an arpeggio. I could cross my hands. Like I was like really excited about like what could be done like physically, and like how you could make the hand. You could use your hands to make sounds. This is incredible. And then I went to the local library, and I had to find out like who was George Gershwin, like whoever he was, he must be the greatest composer in history, right? And then I found a CD with the Rhapsody in Blue for piano and orchestra, and I listened to it, and this just like moved me, like instant goosebumps. And part of the reason was I think I recognized some melodies from TV commercials. So the Rhapsody in Blue was used for it was a theme song basically for United Airlines.
Hmm.
And so I don't know if you heard any, I don't know if you got those like
Remember.
Canada. Yeah.
Yeah,
Why don't you
I've
play it a
flown
little
with
bit?
them.
Well, you get like melodies like,
How does it go? Oh yeah,
right.
makes me want
Yeah,
to fly.
very familiar. You get exactly, exactly. So
cool.
so I'd only been playing for a month, and I went back to my teacher at the next lesson, and I just excitedly blurted out, "I'm learning the Rhapsody in Blue," and Mrs. Pellet very wisely said, well, okay, like calm down. Right? This is not exactly for beginners. This is for professional concert pianists. It's an extremely difficult piece. Well, oh, I don't care. I already bought the sheet music. And she goes, but you can't even read music. So somehow I like deciphered every single
Clicked
black
in.
dot on the page and figured out like what key it mapped to.
Wow.
And somehow I learned it within months. I still don't know how. And I performed it for my very first on stage performance to a standing ovation. All 30 pages of Gershwin's original version for solo piano, and that is that's how everything got started for me, and that's what sparked this desire to become a concert pianist.
What are the biggest concerts that you performed at?
That depends. I don't know, because I've done like big events, some small events, some like big venues. Sometimes the piano has to be amplified, but I can actually highlight a really interesting experience. And this was just a small performance uh, in a small venue, and it was significant because it was the first performance after the pandemic. And what made it really notable was like a lot of performing artists, like a lot of us were wondering, like, can we still get out in front of an audience? Am I going to be a nervous wreck? Like, I'm out of practice now. Uh, and what I discovered, like, it was a solo and chamber music concert. I was playing with a wonderful violinist, Tomoko Maeda, um, and and I thought I'd be a nervous wreck, but what actually happened was, like, I couldn't. Oh my God, there are people here, like, in the same room, who just came to hear music for a couple hours. Like, that's it, and it, like, any nerves just totally dissipated. It was really a special experience.
You feed off the energy, right?
Yeah, yeah, you truly do. Long story short, so I couldn't, and or didn't play the Rhapsody in Blue. I performed it once and only once for a live audience, and that was when I was still 17. And the reason, I have to go into a bit of a darker area, but I won't go into detail. Sadly, my musical talent was anything but supported from my family. Like, when my father was home, he largely, like, forbade me from touching the piano. So I had to
Whoa.
actually find pianos elsewhere. I had to, like, beg, I had to, like, befriend the kids who I knew, like, oh, their family has a piano, right? And then I would, like, beg their parents, can I come over for half an hour and
What?
play a little bit? But I felt, like, deep down that, like, this was what I was meant to do.
Yeah,
Like, I mean,
obviously.
Yeah.
it's not like a choice. It's not like,
Yeah.
okay,
Hmm.
like, being a musician, being an artist, like, that's not really a choice. It's a compelling,
Yeah,
like, must. There's just
It,
something inside of you. Like,
it's one of the hardest things to do.
I can't imagine living doing anything else. Uh, and yeah, so
it is a
I,
gift, right? You got to
Yeah.
give somebody gave you the gift and you pursued and you noticed it and you went for it, right? So
they say, oh, well, if you don't start by like 5 or 6 at the
Yeah.
latest, right, then you have diminishing chances of making a career. uh, and and there I was at 17, and just discovering classical music, just like, on my own, and then feeling that I had not just discovered music, I had discovered a really important part of myself, of me, of my own identity.
Is that what you studied in
I
university?
originally to become an engineer. um,
Okay.
and
Little U-turn.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, and I remember, like, my first day on campus, like, I dropped off my stuff in the dorm, and then I just walked outside and started asking around, "Where's the music building?" Right? Wasn't asking, "Where's the engineering building?" Like, "Where's the music building?" And then I made my way there, and then I went down the hall, and now I had literally never even met a professor in my life up to that point. Like, I'm like, "What do these people even profess?" You know? And 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 then I saw, like, names on a door, and it said, like, "piano" on the door. Like, "Oh my god, it's a piano professors, like a professor of piano." I didn't even know there was such a thing, right? And I knocked on a door. It said Stephen H. Smith piano. Knocked on the door, and introduced myself. Hi, my name's Albert. I'm a freshman. I'm an engineering major, but I want to take some piano lessons, right? And well, can you play something for me, right? What can you play? So I was only playing for a year and a half at the time, but I was already, like, racing through some of the hardest pieces by Chopin and Liszt. And I did that, and I remember very clearly his words to me. He said, "That's the absolute fastest allowable tempo for those 2 pieces, right? Can you play anything by Bach?" And I was thinking, wait a second, I can race through
Wow.
Chopin and Liszt. Like, if you could do that, why would anybody want to play Bach? So that just shows how immature I was. Like, I had a lot to learn,
Bach's
and he
good
knew, and
too,
he could tell. And I did have some Bach prepared, and I played it for him. But he could tell, like, he needed to, like, rein me in. But Dr. Smith took me under his wings, and he became a real, true mentor, to me. And I have him to thank for so much. So it was in my, like, in my fourth semester. Then I decided, very much against the will of my family, but I had zero support anyway, so it didn't matter. I but I decided, well, it's now or never. Like, I lost my entire childhood not practicing, and I suppose in theory I could always, like, go back and finish an engineering degree later on, but probably can't. I've I probably can't do that with music.
hmm
so I decided just to go for it. I went like all in, and the, yeah, and fast forward. Okay, so I made it to Vienna. And I put all my eggs in one
How
basket. So
did
I
that
graduated.
happen then? How did you get to Vienna?
Well, I I I didn't have I didn't have $50 for a bus ticket to New York to audition to Juilliard and the other institutions for grad school, let alone the application fee. So I put all my eggs in one basket. I thought, okay, my goal is I want to win a Fulbright to study piano in Vienna, because I figured, like, half the great composers in history like
Yeah,
worked and lived or were from Vienna. So that's the musical epicenter.
the Mecca.
That's where I have to be. Uh, and I applied. I had literally no plan B. I didn't apply. I
Wow.
literally had no idea what I would do. Like, it's either I win a Fulbright to Vienna or nothing. Later, I found out I was the first pianist to win a Fulbright to Vienna in nearly a decade.
Wow.
Wow.
That's how.
That
Thank you.
gives me chills. That's so cool.
Yeah, I moved here then, and I watched the city grow, and the city just keeps getting better and better, and like for like 10 years or so, it's been rated like the best city in the
Yeah.
world to live in.
So you speak German then?
Ja, natürlich.
Natürlich. Yeah.
The only people I knew were other Fulbright students who were Americans, and then there were a few people who were in the Fulbright program from Austria who studied in America, right? So the circle of friends was like everybody was an English speaker. So and my professors spoke picture perfect English, and so we always spoke English together. And then after a year and a half, like, I could like barely say my own name in German, and it's a German name, right, Albert, right?
Yeah.
And and then I got determined. I don't quite know exactly how it happened, but I set a very ambitious goal, and that was, okay, someday I want to speak German so well that German speakers ask me how I learned English so well. So that was my
Ah,
goal. Now, what
and
actually happened was, at some point
What
I became
happened?
pretty fluent in German, right? The real story. That
yeah,
was
it's hard, the
that
second language
didn't quite happen
learn.
that way. The real story was, so in the circle of friends, that there was an Austrian couple, uh, and depending on who we were with and what like our common language was, we would either speak German or English. And one day I bumped into them in the street, and somebody made some reference to me being American, and then this guy like looks at me and goes, "Wait, you're American?" I was like, "Yeah, didn't you hear my accent?" Or like, "No, I always thought you were Austrian. I just thought you were a little slow." Because I still needed more time to process things. What did I just hear? Right? What does that mean?
That's
Which I
funny.
get. Yeah,
Oh, that's good. That means
that's
your
funny.
German's really good. So you worked hard at it. It's good. It's important in Austria, right?
Let's start again. Name and occupation in depth, coming to you live from Beethoven's house. As far as I'm concerned, the greatest composer of all time. Who knows what he composed in there? The Moonlight Sonata, the Fur-Elise, the Ode to Joy, perhaps. Let's go check out what it looks like inside, guys. Ludwig van Beethoven's house.
Daisy and my girls were traveling through Europe last year, and we ended up going to Vienna, and we went to the Beethoven, I guess it's this house where he lived for a long time, and I bumped into Albert. And it's funny because there's an audio recording of his Beethoven's Last Will and Testament, the letters, and I was listening to the audio, and I can hear this guy in front of me talking on his phone to, I guess, other people, and I'm like, it sounds like the same guy. And then how I approached Albert, and I don't know if you remember that, but I was like, is that you? And then you were like explaining that the narrator's name was off. Have they changed the narrator's name on the tag?
well, well, I am very, very proud to be the voice of Beethoven for the city of Vienna, at least the English voice of the voice of English speaking Beethoven. It used to be just like a really small, like a couple of rooms, and now they took over the whole building, turned the whole thing into a museum. And I got asked to record Beethoven's so-called Heiligenstadt Testament, basically his last will and testament, and it's Beethoven's most important document. It was when Beethoven realized in his early 30s that he was going irrevocably deaf, and he wrote a very impassioned letter and will to his brothers, and he had had a falling out with one of his brothers, so he had two, so he wrote like to my brothers Carl and then just like an underline just like a line because he couldn't even write his other brother's name, and basically it says that like how could this happen to me of all people, like I am like the person who's been given this gift, this special gift of music, and this is the most important thing. How could this happen to me of all people? And then he practically like contemplates suicide, and he says, but I must go on, I will be defiant and in the face of fate, and I will continue, like typical. This is what we associate with Beethoven. So I got asked to read this testament in English, so I recorded it for the museum. Then they invited me to the grand opening of the museum. So I go there and I see in the room, whatever, and I see the it says the Deutsch or like German, and the button for English. It says narrator Patrick Lamb, and I thought, who the hell is Patrick Lamb? And I put on the headphones, press the button, and then I hear my voice. So I brought it to the attention of the museum. It's like, well, this is my voice. I don't know who Patrick Lamb is, right? It did change the name in the meantime. And if you ever come back to Vienna, then like I have like practically lifetime free admission to that museum. That like they wanted to make it up to me. Like, we're so sorry, right?
Okay,
So,
good.
Awesome.
So the deal is, okay, it's like I can invite all my family and friends. Right?
So with pianos, like the older the piano, is it the better it is, or does it keep its like charisma or energy, or how does that work?
Pianos don't, unfortunately, they don't hold up the same way that violins do. So you have violins, like old,
Right.
like Stradivarius violins, Guarneri violins, that are worth like they could be worth millions of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting is they have to be played. So usually like artists, like musicians, cannot afford these things, right? So
Right.
often like they're in
Collectors.
like the collection of, let's say, a bank, and then the bank will
Put it in the vault.
will offer it on permanent loan to some famous artist, right?
Mm.
But so they actually have to be played. If they just sit like in a vault, even with good like temperature and humidity, like humidity controlled or climate controlled conditions, then they actually get worse.
Wow.
So they need to be played. They do need work.
They need the love. They need love, right?
Yeah, they do. With pianos, with pianos, with historical pianos, like the ones that are a couple hundred years old, it's really, really difficult to maintain them in original condition.
Okay.
There's like a museum here. It's now part of the collection of the World Museum in Vienna. They have a large collection of historical pianos, and they also have amazing staff and like people who specialize in historical piano restoration, who are like really great experts. So they actually keep them in really good shape. My mentor here in Vienna was Paul Badura-Skoda, very, very great artist. He's like Badura-Skoda is a legend in the classical music world. He sadly died at like just like 2 weeks before his 92nd birthday 5 years ago, but he was really like a father figure to me, and I had the great honor of getting to work very closely with him for many years. And one of Paul's claims to fame was that like he practically, like at least as far as the piano is concerned, he practically invented the historical instrument movement. It became like a whole thing where there are people there, like a subset of classical musicians is people who only play on historical instruments. So the instruments sounded different at the time, and then there's like a debate, and so there's some, it's an aesthetic thing, and some say, okay, well, the goal is like we really want to hear the music as they heard it at the time, so we want to use their instruments. Then we also want to play it in the style as close as we can ascertain. It's just, it basically becomes like your best guess, like an educated guess. And so there are people who just specialize in that. So there are people who only play on historical pianos, which are very different from like a modern concert grand that I'm playing here.
Okay.
And
Who makes the best pianos? Isn't it the Germans?
Bösendorfer,
Makes the
Austria.
best.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think. Oh, okay.
I thought
Full
so.
disclosure, I'm on Bösendorfer's artist roster, but they are known as the best, like creme de la creme, like the Rolls Royce of pianos, and absolutely like gorgeous, stunning instruments. The other high end piano makers, of course, Steinway's very high end piano maker. So beautiful, beautiful Steinways, in both New York and Hamburg. It's not an objective thing. Like you have like an artist, like you have to find your instrument. It's kind of like, it's like finding your life partner. Like like oh, she's the one, right? And it's very very different for for everybody.
Right.
So it's it's just a personal thing. It's subjective. This is the oldest piano company that has been in continuous existence in the world. So Bösendorfer was founded in 1828, which is 1 year after Beethoven died,
Wow.
and the year that Schubert died, another like a Viennese composer, and they've been in continuous operation ever since. But several, like numerous piano companies they're very historical. Like Steinway is from, I think, the 1850s. Bechstein also the 1850s, if I'm not mistaken. The pianos at the time they're really very different. So if you were to like Google like historical, or go to YouTube or something and go to like it's called forte piano.
Okay.
Is like the name that we give to older pianos, or just historical piano, and then you could just compare the sound, and it's really interesting. So they're a lot smaller. Like nowadays, like this is made for like a big concert hall, right?
Awesome.
What are the best woods to use for the construction of pianos? I've never really, like guitars, for example, alder and ash are quite common, right?
Okay. Here they use spruce.
Oh,
So
Interesting.
there's a special spruce tone wood that's used that grows in Austria. And there's another forest in Italy that Fazioli uses where the, it's like the same forest that, like, I think Stradivarius used for the violins centuries ago. So like spruce is the main tone wood, at least the one that Bösendorfer uses.
Okay, okay,
Interesting.
nice. And that's throughout the whole piano. Like there's not hybrids. For example, guitars often there'll be a maple neck, there'll be an alder body, so on and so forth, right? Rosewood fingerboard, whatever it is, right?
Yeah, that's something that makes Bösendorfer different. So other manufacturers like Steinway uses hybrids, so they use like some. I mean, but they're different. They're different concepts. They're different philosophies. They're different ways of. So the I don't want to say like it depends on on your aim and what you want it to sound like, right? So there's some different ways, but at least what Bösendorfer uses is spruce tone wood throughout, and it's also naturally dried. So they're the only
mhm.
piano manufacturer that just it takes them like 6 years to dry, like I think to like fully dry like a piece of wood. So they don't put it in a kiln or anything to accelerate the process. They say, well, it sounds better if we just let it happen naturally, even if it takes years. It sounds better, so that's what we're going to do. So I mean, it's what makes them like the creme de la creme, and then they'll also use it throughout the entire rim of the piano, which is very unusual. It's like more of a 19th century piano construction. So basically, like the whole case of the piano becomes an extension of the soundboard. It's not something that simply like surrounds and encloses the sound. It's something that vibrates, that's meant to vibrate as an extension of the soundboard, basically. So that's why you get like this beautiful tone out of it.
Huh. How long does
Nice.
it take to
That's
build one of
cool.
those? Like a piano? It's all done by hand, I'm
Oh,
assuming.
yeah, this is like all completely handmade. It takes years.
Years.
Like,
Wow.
in total, if you take from you know procuring the wood and like the whole
Drawing.
construction, it's years.
Wow.
We're gonna have to find
Incredible.
a guy who builds pianos, Andre, and do
Oh
an
yeah.
interview like we
Yeah.
did with
Do you know a
guitars
guy?
and stuff.
That's an idea.
Yeah, it would be
That'd
Because
be pretty
interesting.
we've done people who build guitars and
Yeah, a couple.
different guitar systems and stuff. So that'd be cool, actually.
Yeah, it
Do an
would
Oh,
be
I can
interview on
cool.
that.
recommend people. Well, let's touch
Oh,
base afterwards, and maybe I could like recommend some people.
yeah.
You ever play the organ? You ever go in the church and like rock it?
I have. I've like tinkered with it. It's pretty intimidating, to be honest.
Right, right.
Really?
Because you have like all the like more manuals. You have all the stops. You have the pedals. I founded a startup, and it's called Keynotes. So I teach online, and it combines video instruction uh, with innovative software. So there are apps that are integrated directly into the platform that help students to learn particular musical skills. So I learn like any good teacher, like we learn from our students,
Hmm.
and I think like I learn at least as much from my students as they learn from me, and then I always find like part of what a music teacher needs to do is like find out like like kind of like diagnose problems, like where's the problem, where is the issue, where is the student struggling. And sometimes I think, wait, it shouldn't take this long. Like for example, sometimes like it's possible on the piano just to like press keys, and you learn with muscle memory, but you might not learn like the underlying music theory or like the musical language.
Mhm.
And what like the effect of that is you're much less secure, and it's also harder to learn because it's easier. I mean, imagine if you were to learn, let's say you wanted to, let's say you wanted to learn Mandarin, right? And a native, imagine like a native Chinese speaker like sits you down in front of a typewriter in Mandarin, says, okay, press this key, now press this one, etc. And then they could say, well, congratulations, you just typed your first sentence in Chinese. And you go, well, okay, it doesn't do me much good. I have no idea what I just wrote, right? But you could even get really good at typing that sequence of keys while still not knowing exactly what all the symbols mean. And piano is quite similar. So it's possible to just learn primarily through muscle memory without learning like the underlying musical language. And I thought, like, there's got to be an easier way. Like, you shouldn't have like years of piano lessons and still like not know what your basic chords are. So I wrote an app uh, it was one of the lockdown projects, like after the initial panic attack, like, oh my god, I'm like locked in my apartment in Vienna, and I guess I'm not going to be traveling and playing it anytime soon. uh, yeah, I ended up writing an app that I called Cordio, and it's built into the Keynotes platform. So it's just a web app.
I see you have your piano there, Albert. Did you want to play us a little piece? Did you have to
Are you
prepare
going to put me on the spot?
I am. Excellent.
Amazing. How do you establish your set list?
You mean when I prepare a program?
Yeah.
It depends. Like, sometimes they're thematic. So sometimes there might be like a thread that runs through. Like maybe I'll do like different composers, but there's a common thread. Maybe you'd take like a certain form, a certain compositional form, and then what did composers throughout music history do with this particular form? Let's say it could be an etude, it could be a sonata or something, and then you have like different examples, and then but probably more often than not, it's just a matter of mood, because I think like, playing music for me is it's kind of I'm not a trained actor or anything, but I imagine this is to me it's what I imagine method acting to be like. Like method actors would I like if the character is supposed to be drunk, then the actor would just get drunk, right? There's some story of the young Dustin Hoffman, who was a method actor. He was acting in a '70s thriller called Marathon Man, with Laurence Olivier, and Olivier plays like the cruel Nazi villain, and the young Dustin Hoffman plays like the college student who like gets wrapped up in in this whole plot, and Hoffman, like as an actor, would like if this character had like not slept a wink, then Hoffman would just stay up all night, right? And then at one point, apparently, Olivier just goes to him and he says, "My dear boy, why don't you just try acting?" Right? But anyway, the idea of method acting is that the actor becomes the character and lives as the character, and we have some like famous examples of that now, like in popular culture. And for me, like playing a musical work is a lot like that. It's like the 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 music like really takes over for me, and it becomes part of like my consciousness, but it becomes part of my subconscious. It becomes like like I kind of like live and breathe it. I'm in the world of this composition, and it can, can very much change my mood. Like if I'm working on a really deep, intense, like emotional piece, then I I'm probably not coming out of that with a big wide smile on my face. Right now, I'm in that experience and that emotional world of the composition. So a lot of the challenge is shifting from one emotion to another, and that could be, by the way, what makes like an interpretively difficult or emotionally difficult piece of music so difficult. It's not simply that it's like technically difficult, but the difficulty could be you're experiencing one emotion, and then all of a sudden the composer goes to like something totally different, and then you have to feel that in order to really be convincing, and then to shift from one extreme to another, and go on this whole emotional journey that is that piece of music. That is an emotional challenge. It's not just a technical challenge by any means. And then to switch from the world of, let's say, one composer and one composition to another one, so sometimes the contrasts are too great, and it's really difficult to switch from one to another. So I might choose my program accordingly. The opening piece, a set of 13 pieces called Scenes from Childhood. And I'm preparing to play them later this year in November for the Concert for Children's Rights.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
So I'm playing like a full solo program. So I'll play Liszt and Beethoven, Gershwin, Schumann, and also performing with the Vienna Boys Choir and the Vienna Girls Choir at City Hall. So I'm working with numerous children's rights nonprofits like UNICEF, the World Childhood Foundation, and then like some Austrian ones, Kinderschutzbund and Kindernothilfe is like emergency. They offer like emergency aid to children worldwide. So I thought this would be a very appropriate set of pieces to play.
Beautiful.
Perfect.
Actually, I do. Right, but so the last movement is very brilliant, right? The first movement everybody knows, it's very intimate, meditative, and I was debating playing that or something that is emotionally extremely challenging. So it's the next to last Beethoven sonata. Now the last Beethoven wrote 32 solo piano sonatas, and they're considered kind of like the pianist's Old Testament. I'm sorry, the pianist's New Testament. The Old Testament is Bach's 48 Preludes and Fugues. This is like really core meat and potatoes repertoire, like, you know, where we could spend an entire lifetime as a pianist, like on the Beethoven sonatas, and many of us do. And the last 5 of the 32 are they're like considered like the holy of holies. Like you're not supposed to even like dare touch them until you're at least 40 years old, and you have to have lived. It's like, of course, if you could be a young virtuoso and play all the notes, and they're hard enough, they're more than hard enough, but to really get at the meaning, it's like it's like the next last Beethoven sonata, Opus 110. It's like the pianist Hamlet. It's a really difficult, intense role to play. Like, you have to be a mature actor, and that's what I feel about it. So I was actually debating, and then I met a lovely young lady who actually challenged me. She said, "No, don't hold back. Like, this is such an emotional event, a concert for children's rights. Don't play it safe emotionally. Take that risk." So I decided to take her advice and actually go for it. And I can play just like the opening for you in A flat major, and it's heart rending. It's really just it's the most intimate music. So this is not really virtuosic at all. It's the antithesis of that, and so it's just totally lyrical. And so on. And
Wow.
so really, really just, it's heartrending music. And then Beethoven just goes really into the depths of despair in this piece. And then what I love about Beethoven in general, and is that there's always this there's always a strong sense of hope in his music. And this particular sonata, Opus 110, exemplifies that sense of hope. So he goes just absolutely into the depths of despair. Like, it just devastating, brings you to tears, and then he takes you out of that. So it is such an emotional journey, and it's a very meaningful piece to me personally. Like, to me, I think it's the piece that made me a musician. It was my professor in college, Stephen Smith, who just suggested that I learn that piece. It was actually way before I was ready. And, because I mean, I had the fingers, and I was doing like more virtuosic, showy things, right? I knew I could do that, but he knew I needed more. And he could only have known that I was very far from emotionally ready to interpret such a complex work as this. But I think I rose to the challenge. Like, I took it as a real challenge, just emotionally, and it's music that just brings me to tears. It's just really just extraordinary music. So I decided to play that, and actually, I guess I kind of have to tell this story because you asked me how I got started. It was the Rhapsody in Blue, and it was, the Gershwin's music that inspired me that allowed me to discover my talent and inspired me to want to become a concert pianist. Only a few years ago, I actually found out, we don't have time to get into this story, this is something else altogether, but I actually found out that I had a grandmother whom I never met, who was a pianist. She wasn't a professional, but she played as a, it was her hobby, like, throughout her life. She was crazy about classical music and used to, like, have season tickets to to the Philadelphia Orchestra, and I had this wonderful photo of her playing the piano as a young woman, and she was playing a very difficult piece by Chopin, so she must have been pretty good. And I learned that her favorite piece, like she had she had a record collection at home, and I learned like her favorite piece was the Rhapsody in Blue, and she used to play that record all the time, and like I couldn't believe it. And once I heard that, like, oh my God, I knew, okay, my life's journey has come full circle now. Now I have to play this, and I did, and I played it just the other week actually at the Austrian Parliament. And I shared the story, and and like you mentioned how you feel the energy in the room, you feel the audience, and I was a little anxious because I knew like addressing like a room full of politicians where you get like people on all different like throughout the entire political spectrum, and you know the like one side might be empathetic to you, and then the other side is throwing rotten tomatoes, right, and hate your guts, right. But it wasn't like that at all. I was absolutely completely just totally blown away by like there was just extraordinary like palpable support and empathy, and I felt like the entire audience was there with me, and that made it actually easy to play, and I was able to play well and just feel that I could let go, and that was just truly extraordinary experience. And I'll be
Wow.
playing the Rhapsody in Blue again at as part of the Concert for Children's Rights.
We live in an era of exponential technological growth, of rapid product cycles, and we need to think more and more about what really makes us human. And more than that, we need to think hard about our culture's legacy in history. You see, we have a responsibility. A lot of people are talking about that. But our responsibility is not only to the future, it's also to the past. And unless and until we fully understand the extent to which we're the benefactors of past generations and cultures, we won't understand how important we can be to future generations. Further, we can't teach our children unless we know it ourselves. This is our responsibility to the past and the future in art as well as science. The rest is a matter of taste. Thank you.
Like when TEDx first became a thing, and then there were like initial events in Austria, and somehow I got invited to speak and yeah, that's right. I got invited to speak and perform, and then I decided, oh wait, if I'm going to be speaking in front of an audience, I better learn how to speak in front of an audience. So I knew about Toastmasters, and I decided to join uh, to join Toastmasters and go to every possible meeting that I could and try to learn as much as I could. And it was a great experience, also a very humbling experience. So like that is like the international organization for learning like communicate like public speaking and leadership skills, and they do a marvelous job at it. And they have like a program, kind of like a course of study that you follow, and there's a lot of flexibility, but it's a very supportive, very positive environment where you get very helpful feedback from more experienced speakers, and then gradually you improve. And that's what happened to me, just like it happens to everybody who does it, I guess. And yeah, so I have them to thank actually. So I worked very hard on my speaking skills, and like for example, one of the things that they do in a Toastmasters meeting is like they have somebody who counts all the ahs and ums, and then at the end of the meeting, then they'll go through like all the names and actually like single you out, right? And then at the club that I was at in Vienna, like they would make us literally pay 10 cents for every ah or
Oh,
and
Wow.
that actually got kind of
Must be.
expensive.
I bet.
And yeah, so you contribute to the club, but gradually, you become aware, like, and so as I worked on my skills, and then I gave like the initial talks, and what was really interesting is that the organizers noticed, oh wait, the you speak, you sound like a professional speaker, right? Like we want you back, or can you speak at some other event? So that's basically how that happened. And I really have Toastmasters to thank for it. So
Pretty
there's
awesome.
I learned like all my speaking skills I learned from them, and then things just expanded from there. And then I really wanted, it became important to me, like not just to I didn't want to just go to a Toastmasters club and have that just be all the speaking that I do, right? And I thought, well, it's not. It's just like in music. In music, it's not just about like learning technical skills, like you play your scales and arpeggios, and play like fast and brilliantly. That doesn't matter. What if you don't use it to actually say something through this artistic medium? So it's the same thing in speaking. And I thought, well, this isn't just like an exercise in how to speak well. The important thing is, wait, what's the message? Like, what do I really want to? What do I really have to say? And then I started speaking on children's rights, and it has given me great meaning, and working with children's rights nonprofits. So that's something that's just truly close to my heart, and I really like, if I could just like spend the rest of my life like dedicating like my skills, my artistic skills, or any speaking skills to that cause, then that for me would be very meaningful.
You're like a philosopher. You're so eloquent in your thoughts, and all you
Very
have
kind.
a
Thank you
myriad
so
of
much.
things to say.
Right.
Yeah. Your comparison, like in Brave New World, about like, yeah, taking a pill can make you happy, but it's what is in that happiness of that pill, and when Brave New World was written, they didn't have Xanax or whatever, whatever pill that actually can make you happy. But it's about the drive to self-improvement, the drive to become better, and that challenge that you experience every day. Like, I just found that so eloquent and philosophical in our strive as as humans, as human beings.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. Like for me, it's not something about happiness, right? But it's more about meaning, and like like what's meaningful to each one of us as individuals.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and to pursue that meaning, right?
Mm.
Like we're all important.
Exactly. And yeah, and we have to find it, and sometimes even when we find it, then we have to fight for it. If we want to make a meaningful difference, then I think we often have to deal with we come face to face with uncertainty.
Yeah. What do you think about living in Austria in general and Europe compared to the US? Like, can you talk just a little bit about that?
There's so many differences. Like okay, one is I could say as an artist, as a classical musician, then this is a country like Europe in general, but Austria in particular, is a country that like really seriously highly values the arts. Now, part of it is economic, because obviously like that's why tourists come. Like they come to see, whether it's the architecture, going to the art museums or the opera or the Philharmonic. They're coming for art and culture. And so part of it is just makes sense economically, right? But they do like genuinely value like the art and culture here. So that's a, that is something that really significantly stands out. So as a result, there's a high degree of government support for the arts and culture. That's one big difference. Obviously, the U.S. model is very different. Um, the it, and then another that's quite surprising to Americans in particular, is there's universal health care here. So if you need a prescription for anything, like you're in the system, a prescription for anything costs like €6. which is like
Okay.
$7 or $6.50 or whatever it is now. And it and like you're basically everybody's covered for everything. Obviously, I mean there are limitations to the system. There are pluses and minuses and whatever. But on the whole, it's it's a far better system, right? And sometimes like when Americans ask me about, oh my God, you have socialized medicine there, and that I mean, it must be terrible. Like, what's it like? Yeah, well, actually, it's amazing. It's incredibly convenient. Like, you don't have to sign anything. It's like you just you go to the doctor, like they scan your card, and then you're done. Like you have your appointment, then you walk out. Like, what about all the paperwork? There's no paperwork. What do you mean there's no paperwork? No, there's nothing. It's just yeah, it's definitely like a different experience. But I feel I mean I'll always be American, but I feel like pretty European at heart. I've spent like my adult life here, so I see certainly both worlds. And I think that there's a lot to be said for the quality of living that we have here. And I've just watched it get better and better over the years, and now it's been considered for many years in a row the best city in the world to live in, and it, the infrastructure is amazing. One thing that's great about Vienna is like now it has a population of 2 million, so it's a large city, but it's not a metropolis. So it's not like Shanghai or New York or or, or Berlin, right? Or Istanbul or something. So it's still manageable. Even the word Vienna comes from like a Latin vindo bona, which meant wine. So there are the vineyards actually all around the outskirts of the city. And so you have a lot of family-owned vineyards, and just like if you go to the outskirts of the city, you don't feel that you're in a city. So it's very different from cities like from most cities like in North America. And like there's a lot of green space, beautiful parks. And you do see where your tax money goes here.
It's well maintained.
So
When we were there,
What's
we
your
noticed
favorite
it.
spot in Vienna? Is it the Opera
Oh,
House?
oh,
Is
my
it the
favorite
Is it
spot.
the Beethoven Museum?
is
What's
it
your
the
favorite
park?
spot?
I can't even answer that question, to be perfectly honest. And one of the things that I could say
So many
is
gems there, I bet.
even living here this long, like just yesterday I was downtown, and even after all these years, I still like I go down like I'm in this city. I just marvel at the architecture every single
Yeah.
time. Like I'd never tire the the aesthetic beauty of the city, and I never take it for granted. And
It's
so
white. All the buildings are white.
well they became white, right?
Oh, they're
Because
not.
they
Oh,
cleaned them
okay.
up. Yeah, they had to do like the city over a
Restoration.
period of years had to sandblast like all the historical buildings because they were actually blackened with soot when I first came. So I thought that
Oh.
was the color of the buildings, and then they did this big restoration project for like all the historical buildings, and they look just immaculate now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. When we
Absolutely
were there, we could
gorgeous.
see that. We noticed that everything was white and clean, and everybody was very polite. Like we go to stores or museums and stuff like that. Everybody was polite.
They had this like outdoor market that
Mhm.
is beautiful. I love markets, and they had you know
The park,
food and um all kinds of things you could eat in the market. They had like restaurants. It was like a little. Do you know what the market that I'm referencing?
I think it's the Noshmarkt.
That's
yes.
But they
it.
have
That
they have a number of markets all over town,
yeah, the
and
Nash Mart. That's the one.
that's the biggest one, the most famous one, and it's great and just
It is
great.
great.
You go there for lunch or go there on Saturdays, and and it's just a bustling place and with a lot of great food
And then
and a
there
lot
was.
of like different mm,
Go ahead.
yeah, a lot of like different restaurants that like you got Middle Eastern restaurants, you got Austrian restaurants, so you get like cuisine from all over.
Awesome.
How do you like the Austrian food? compared to the American diet?
Well, I think I eat neither an Austrian nor an American diet because yeah, it's just a little too heavy for me. Well, actually, no. This is funny. This is not a joke. It's things have changed in the past 20 something years. But when I first came here, I would go to a restaurant and like an Austrian, like traditional Austrian restaurant, and I would there's like everything's pork and fried this and that, whatever,
Schnitzel.
or schnitzel. It's like, okay, that's a little much. Do you have anything like vegetarian? No joke. And so, oh, we have fried chicken. Like what? No. Like to them, like chicken is
Chicken
vegetarian
doesn't count.
because it means either pork or red meat,
Yeah.
right? It's like, no, I mean like vegetarian. And so, oh, you mean vegetables? Yes. Okay. Well, we have. No, I'm making this up. We have a huge slab of deep fried cheese. Would you like that? Like wrapped in bacon. I'm not making this up. Like that's an
Oh my
Austrian
gosh.
thing. Like
Close.
no, I mean like
Almost.
vegetarian. Like you know, you gotta.
That's funny.
You ready for a rapid fire question? City or countryside?
City.
Club or a concert?
Concert.
Rock or country music?
Rock.
Okay. Are you a Rolling Stones guy or a Beatles guy?
Beatles 100%, huge Beatles fan.
Nice.
But there's like turns out like classical musicians like tend to be huge Beatles fans.
Okay.
Oh. Fun fact.
Okay, this is a tough one. Mozart or Beethoven?
Oh, don't do this to me. No. Okay, if I had to choose like Desert Island, oh my God. Okay, if I had to Beethoven.
Okay, fair enough.
That's the right answer.
Okay.
Cooking or eating out?
Well, since my since like the outer limits of my culinary skills is like boiling water, right? Then eating out. If you need a recipe for how to boil water, you know who to ask.
Okay.
That's funny.
Okay. Truth or dare? No, I'm kidding.
Oh, that's good. Okay. Dare.
It's a joke.
Okay. First thing that comes to mind: Canada.
Canada. Montreal.
Piano.
Bösendorfer.
Favorite cuisine?
Thai.
Your superpower?
Oh, that's interesting. A superpower? I'm gonna say courage.
That's awesome.
That was it, man. Thank you very much, Albert. Man, that was amazing. We could talk for another 2 hours, I think.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to have you back.
Fun, right?
This was so much fun.
Yeah.
Just talking to all of you.
Yeah, it's cool, right?
It was really cool. Awesome. It was a real
Thank you
pleasure
so much.
having you on, Albert.
Yeah,
Real pleasure.
really.
Thank you so much, Albert.
Oh, you too. Take care.
Okay, take care,
Bye.
man.
And if you're ever back in Vienna, we can go to that Beethoven Museum.
We will. For sure, we're taking that on.